Welcome to our 10th episode of SARCan, Canada's volunteer search and rescue podcast for Volunteer SAR, about Volunteer SAR, and by Volunteer SAR. Brought to you by Axiom Mutual Insurance, keeping promises close to home. My name is Patrick Armstrong, and with me in this beautiful May day is my co-host, Spencer Whitelaw. How are you, Spencer?
I'm great, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good.
You can feel the seasonal depression leaving and the seasonal allergies setting in. Either way, I'm still going to bed with tears in my eyes.
I think you do normally, don't you?
Yeah.
So
Anyways.
Your birthday's coming up.
Thanks for reminding me.
And what birthday is it? I know you mentioned it last podcast, but I tune out after.
I know, I tune you out as well. This is the year after my 29th birthday.
You're only 30?
No, I'm 29 plus 1.
I was never that young.
No, I know, I can tell.
So, you know what we missed? Emergency Preparedness Week last week.
Did we? Sounds like we were ill-prepared.
I think so. I'd like to talk to the scriptwriter.
Yeah, no kidding. I got a few bones to pick with that guy.
So, emergency preparedness, I saw that SARVAC and OSARVA were really big on sending everything out about all the different things to prepare for and to be ready for. And that's kind of what the episode today is about, isn't it?
Yes, it's good that they're on top of it.
And today we're talking about AdventureSmart, which is your favorite subject.
Yes, you made me wait until our episodes hit the double digits to be able to kind of steer this one with the guest choice and the question choice, but that's okay. It takes a while for promotions to settle in, I guess.
It does. And next week is Safe Boating Week, I think you had said.
Yes, which we will steer the ship right back in your direction because I don't know a thing about boats.
Wear your life jacket or PFD.
Yes,
if we learned anything from Dr. Popsicle, it's no sense having the safety equipment if you're not going to use it and it's not readily available. Having it down below in a cuddy or underneath in a cabinet means nothing. You have to have it available. And if you have children on a boat, please have them wear their PFD or their life jacket. And I promised Spencer for the first 9 episodes, I was not going to bring up Spencer on survival. However, we are on episode 10. So on YouTube, I'll make sure I put the link when we send this out on social media. There's an excellent video of Spencer trying to put his life jacket on in the water as a grown man, as a grown person. And all jokes aside, it's difficult.
Yeah, that was probably a good 5 years ago, and it was very difficult. I remember fondly very early on I think you were talking to me and my summer camp kids about the importance of wearing a life jacket. And one of the kids said, well, if I fall off the boat, I'll just swim and put it back on. And I thought to myself, oh man, he's got a good point. And then you immediately clapped back with, well, when you hit your head off the boat and you fall unconscious and you end up face down in the water, then what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, that's a good response because I didn't think about that either. I think we were talking about the difference between PFDs and life jackets with having the collar that's actually going to keep you upright and your head above water and the importance of that. So I thought that was interesting. This guy knows what he's talking about.
Probably my tact with kids, though. That does seem like my initial response would be to that extreme. And I don't know that's probably why I'm not an AdventureSmart.
Yeah, like we had you trained up, and that was good. And then I realized maybe over the week-long summer camp, we'll just have you here for like an hour tops is the safest bet.
That is the safest bet. So yes, shortly we're going to have Kathleen O'Brien from, I call it Ottawa SAR, but it's not.
I call it SBO because I don't speak French. Even though I took French all throughout high school, got a little certificate and everything at the end of it, I retained absolutely nothing. I barely speak English. So SBO is what I call them.
I go with fromage, and I know comment allez-vous, and I know a couple of words that I can't say on a G-rated podcast.
That's fair. Are we G-rated? Really? We'll have to change that.
With the amount of editing. We will be back after our sponsor with our next show. This episode's sponsor is Maitland Valley Marina and Resort Park, located at 100 North Harbor Road in Goderich. It's a wonderful collection of marina, go bring your boat, as well as a resort park. And it's not just a beautiful trailer park. There are a lot of permanent homes there, Spencer, including floating homes, which are really kind of cool right there in the marina.
My favorite thing to do with marine craft, if that's a word, is calling ships boats because I know it drives you insane. So if I go to Maitland Valley Marina and start talking about boats when we're very obviously talking about ships, will I get banned?
There are no ships that can get into the marina. However, calling them marine craft, I think, makes me more upset.
All right, noted. So we'll go with that moving forward.
So thank you to Maitland Valley Marine and Resort. We appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Today we have a very special guest with us, Miss Kathleen O'Brien. Kathleen is the AdventureSmart Director for the Sauvetage Beneval Outaouais Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue, as well as the Administrative Coordinator and AdventureSmart Provincial Coordinator for OSARVA. Kathleen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Now, Kathleen, share with our listeners and Patrick and I a little bit about yourself, your time with, I'm going to call it SBO, because that was a mouthful that I'll just keep screwing up throughout the episodes, with SBO and your role with AdventureSmart Ontario.
So I am with SBO OVSAR. We are located in the Ottawa Outaouais region. I'm the AdventureSmart Coordinator for our team, and I'm also the Provincial AdventureSmart Coordinator for all of Ontario. And we do have an assistant coordinator now, Tricia Bloomfield from Georgian Bay. So I'm very excited to have her on board.
Awesome. And I remember when the request went out for assistant provincial coordinators, and it's something that I've wanted to jump on, but I just know that I cannot give it the time and attention it deserves, because I know how much effort goes into facilitating this program across the province. So I appreciate everything you and everything that you're doing to keep this program running. Thank you for taking on, because I know it's not light work.
It is not, especially we're picking our numbers back up again following COVID. We did have a dip in requests for presentations, and we were doing virtual presentations at the time. We weren't able to hand out the kits, but now we're ramping back up, getting back out to schools. This is actually our busy season, as you would imagine, as the Cub Scouts, Girl Guides, and school years come to an end. There's a lot of requests for presentations, and it's a good time to get in front of the kids before they head out to the summer and adventuring in the lakes and waterways and forests of our province.
Yes, I've noticed that on a local scale as well, too, that our presentation requests are picking up. It's that time of year, so I'm very excited to get back out there and presenting as well.
So you'll notice, Kathleen, that he's very complimentary because he knows his paperwork sucks. And
It is true.
Very thankful for all that you do for that. And I had to admit to him that my paperwork sucks too on the OSARVA side. So you can just get frustrated with the Huron area search and rescue all around.
Well, you guys come around eventually.
I was surprised when you agreed to come on here. I thought, we may just be setting ourselves for a reprimand here.
We're talking about AdventureSmart. What are the 5 programs in AdventureSmart?
So the 5 programs that fall under the AdventureSmart umbrella are Hug a Tree and Survive, Survive Outside Snowmobile, Snow Safety, and Paddle Smart.
And which one is your favorite?
My favorite is Hug a Tree for many reasons. One, it's the one we do most often. By far, it is the most popular one. It was the first program that came out many years ago, and it's also fun with the kids. They are full of interesting questions, observations, distractions, and all sorts of things that go on. And actually, one of the trainings we do on our team when we're getting new presenters and getting comfortable with the material and the program and how they're going to present it, we'll sit in the back of the room and we'll just ask them random questions that have nothing to do with the topic that, the 5 and 6 year olds would do, and just throw them for a loop. And they think we're being really mean and harsh, but it's just the way it goes when they get a bunch of, especially the smaller kids, or the storytelling, just a long rambling story that a child will tell you about their neighbor's dog for I don't know what reason. That could go on for hours if you don't rein them in a bit. So the children are actually highly entertaining.
I love that, and I totally agree. It's such a curveball. Hug a Tree is, of course, our most popular presentation as well, too, that we do in Hazar. And not having kids myself, it took a while to learn how to talk to and how to present to kids. And you've hit the nail on the head, absolutely, with you get the hand up where they'll just go on a tangent about nothing in particular. Every now and then you'll get one that answers the question, which is awesome. Sometimes you get them to put their hand up and you'll be like, yes, you. And then there's just absolute silence. And it's awesome. It's such a curveball, and it keeps you on your toes, and it makes every presentation fresh, because being our most used presentation, get it really right down into a rhythm of how the presentation progresses, but they always break it up and throw you off track every now and then. So that's great. I love that.
I think my favorite one was we were doing an entire school, and over lunch I had stepped out, and coming back, the principal stopped me and we had a conversation. So I got back into the library where the next class was already assembled. And I had a new person on my team that wasn't comfortable presenting yet, but wanted to come along and was a great help for the day. It was awesome. But he was standing in front of the room with this look of horror on his face, because all the kids were telling him about all their trees. And the one girl, her father was a diplomat, and I don't know where they had been living, but he was telling my partner about the macadamia nut trees in their yard. And I thought, oh, this is a nice conversation. So I got up, I started, and I said, today we're going to talk about, how not to get lost and what to do if we do get lost. And the teacher turned and went, oh. And I said, what? Because you're not an arborist? I said, I am not an arborist. And she made this with her, you can't see because this is not visual, but with kind of a gear change across her brain. And she's like, change gears, children, change gears. We're not talking about actual trees today. And I think that is my favorite part of any presentation to this day. It was hilarious. To me anyway. But the change gears
awesome.
lady
It's like now the macadamia nut tree makes so much more sense as to what we're talking about.
So much more sense after that.
It's just like, how do you tie that in? Be like, oh yeah, you can hug macadamia nut trees. Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spencer once set me up. I had to go do a presentation, and I was preparing. I was under the impression it was a PA day, that the way it was sold to me was I was going to be talking to 150 children. So I had everything laid out, and I was preparing myself for that, to find out that it was 150 adults. They were child care persons, and that's who I was talking to. So all of a sudden, my whole thought on how we were going to cross the road holding hands and all the things I had set up had to change. And I had that gear change moment of, uh-oh. So
yeah, the importance of being flexible and being able to think and adapt on your toes is something deep in the AdventureSmart world.
One thing you bring up, Kathleen, when you talk about the survival, getting lost with Hug a Tree, and I think out of the programs, it's the one that I like the most, because it is those basic skill sets that a child's going to remember and is going to prepare them for the rest of their life on trip planning. What to do when you're lost, to take hold of that fear, and instead of going running, find that location. All those base skills that a 5 or 6 year old are going to remember and could save their life.
That's true. And the 3 T's, the trip planning, training, and taking the essentials we talk about with the older teens and adults, are really the same things we're talking to the kids about, just broken down a little farther and just in a little concepts a little easier for them to understand. But I mean, tell an adult where you're going is the same as leaving a trip plan for an adult who's going to put more detail into their backcountry adventure traveling. It's the exact same concept. When you learn it as a kid to tell an adult, it just flows into a more detailed recording for your trip plan.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me into my favorite AdventureSmart program, which is Survive Outside. As has been alluded to in previous episodes, I'm a bit of a geardo or a gear nut, and racking up copious amounts of debt and buying stuff that I probably don't need in the woods. But I love bringing my bag along for show and tell as well too. And that's great for Survive Outside, because it is all about trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. So taking the essentials takes up most of my presentation, where we go through the 10 essentials and then anything else that is recommended to bring on whatever activities, whatever specific activity that you're doing that would be helpful for that. So Survive Outside is my favorite. And you're absolutely right when you say that the trip planning, training, and taking the essentials is sprinkled in throughout Hug a Tree, just on a more kid-friendly level. And I remember when I was first learning how to do presentations, the default or the fallback was always just drill home those 4 points with small attention spans. Just get those 4 points across, and if they remember 2 out of the 4 of them, you're laughing, because they're going to be in a much better spot. And I always like opening my Hug a Tree presentations with asking the kids, who do you think gets lost more, kids or grown-ups? And of course, they always think it's kids. And while kids may get lost quite a bit too, kids are often found a lot quicker, because you kids are good at listening and following rules, and adults are not good at doing that. And we have what's called egos, and we think that we know better and we can get ourselves out of the situation better, and we end up getting ourselves lost deeper and deeper into the woods, and we're harder to find. So then that's how we progress into the concept of hugging a tree and staying in one spot, is how I always start off my presentations.
And it's really interesting when you're doing a presentation for, Sparks or Embers or Scouts or Beavers, to see who was there, because they're in that program for 2 or 3 years before they move to the next level. They may have seen that program the year before, and they're seeing it for a second time. And it's really interesting to see how much they've retained when they're hearing it for the second time. And it's surprisingly quite a lot.
Yes, that's always nice when you get some repeat customers. Is great. I remember my first AdventureSmart presentation. It was, I think, 2 or 3 Hug a Trees and 1 or 2 Survive Outsides at an All Scouts Day at just south of Grand Bend here in Ontario. And I remember the 45-minute drive from my place down to Grand Bend. I just had the Hug a Tree video playing on YouTube repeat because I'm trying to drill it into myself to remember what to say. And I get there and all these beavers and these scouts are gathering around, and I'm like, they can totally see right through me. They see I'm such a fraud. I don't know what I'm talking about. We're just trying to figure it out on the go. And yeah, they totally know way more than me about this. So, but it's nice to chat with them too, because they can always give you good feedback too on what's worked for them, and you can kind of learn off of each other. So that's one of the joys about presenting to all these kids and adults across the area, all the feedback that you get to. And I always ask them at the end, like, what do you recommend I keep in my pack? And you've got some crazy stuff. And the questions like, what do you do if there's acid rain? I'm like, oh man, I never thought about that. What do I do if there's acid rain? So it's good. It keeps you on your toes. So Kathleen, share with us how the AdventureSmart program has developed and changed over the years that you've been involved, from navigating virtual presentations during the pandemic to the advancements in online trip planning. And I just noticed on AdventureSmart's website, there is a new interactive learning experience for hiking and for paddling on their website. So what do you hope the future of the AdventureSmart program looks like?
The AdventureSmart program, actually, when I started, didn't exist. It was just the Hug a Tree program. And over time, actually 20 years ago, BC created the whole AdventureSmart program and rolled it out across the country. I know it was 20 years ago because they just celebrated their 20th anniversary of BC AdventureSmart this year, which means the 20th anniversary of AdventureSmart across Canada is coming up, I want to say 2028. And we all met in Newfoundland and were introduced to this whole suite of programs, which gave us what we were missing, which was a presentation to adults. And it started off with 4 programs. So they added Survive Outside and winter, like snowmobile safety, snow safety, and then down the road, Paddle Smart came out and it covered that specific area that was kind of missing. So over time, more programs have been developed. Some of the consumables have changed. And we did, as you mentioned, over the pandemic, have to switch to virtual presentations, which in a way is good. And the program was always delivered by search and rescue volunteers, but the way the country is with our geography and some rural areas, we don't necessarily have people in all areas. So they did open it up to some other organizations, school boards and guides and scouts, people that have an umbrella organization that covers their insurance and is responsible for background checks and all that sort of stuff. So that enabled the program to get out even farther. And then also now we can still continue to do virtual presentation if that makes more sense, if it's a remote community. Surprisingly, a lot of this was developed for remote communities, but Toronto is my biggest problem. And that's from the sheer volume of people. Our nearest team is in Bowmanville, and we can't meet the demand of all the requests coming out of Toronto just by sheer population. So some of these virtual presentations, or there's also an online presentation or online training program that some of these people can take and then get trained through so they can deliver programs as well. And that's helped to spread the reach a little more, because it's certainly a message we want to get out as far and wide as possible. There is some online training components for presenters that have been a huge help, that were a help during COVID and in those remote communities. And then, as you just mentioned, there's new interactive training, kind of what if scenarios, and follow along. And if you're making the right choices, you'll continue on successfully in the scenario. And if you're making less than stellar choices, it'll let you know why and what a better choice might be. So that's all really good. And it's really helped extend our reach, extend our offerings. The website was recently redeveloped with a lot more tips and tricks, things to pack. The online trip plan has been absolutely amazing. That's really good. That used to be a paper and pencil sort of thing. You left with someone you trusted and somebody that you would hope would like to see you back. But now having it right on your phone, you can make a change. You know, if you're going paddling and the road's blocked, so you can't go from the point you said you were going to, and you have to do any sort of changes, you can make them on the fly on your trip plan app and get that out to people.
Yeah, I love the trip plan app. I still like a paper copy as well too. And when I do the presentations, we go through, I give every kid a pamphlet and we kind of go through it. And sometimes we make it serious and sometimes we take our unicorn to the moon as a part of a trip plan. But either way, as long as the kids are getting the reps in of knowing what important information to take. And every kid now has a cell phone or a tablet where they can play around with it and make their online trip plans as well too, and fire it off electronically. I think that's a great advancement. Has been super helpful as well. So I'm quite a fan of that as well. It's nice to see how the program has been developing, and it's great that you've been there from the very start to see how it goes and to see it through as it continues to develop.
And you bring up Paddle Smart. Mid-May marks Safe Boating Week. We know Ontario has over 250,000 lakes, Canada over 2 million. In fact, the headquarters of SAR, where we are right now, is less than a kilometer from Lake Huron, which today's not too bad, but Huron's been known for some pretty rough waves. Let's talk about Paddle Smart and share with our listeners some of the key messaging from that program on how to keep people safe when paddling.
So, as with all of our programs for adults and older teens, it does promote the 3 T's: your trip planning, your training, and your taking essentials. And we keep repeating that because that's what we always repeat, that key messaging over and over. But it also goes into a bit about knowing the effects of drugs and alcohol. A lot of water sports take place around cottages where things feel a little more relaxed, but the same dangers are still there. So we do need to be attentive and responsive when we're driving boats, when we're on our SUPs. Same as when you're driving, you may be a great driver yourself, but you also have to be a defensive driver against other people on the road. So same as other boaters on the lake, you want to be aware of your surroundings and the safety things around you. Also, the signs of hypo and hyperthermia, those are really important. A lot of people, especially in the spring and fall, can get into situations where they're in danger when they get wet or falling into the lake. You go out in the afternoon where it's nice, but the temperature really drops at night. You may find yourself having to, your boat breaking down and pull over the shore. So having those extra things packed with you is great. And also knowing how to get help and survive until a rescue comes if there's an emergency arises. There's also some legal requirements that go with boating, like having your license and the things you need to have on board, your bailing bucket and your throw rope and all that sort of stuff too. So there's a little more that goes into water sports than if you were just going for a hike or going for a run or going mountain biking. So it does kind of cover those additional aspects of having fun and playing safe.
And even when you're paddling, that floatable white light is so important. People don't realize it because they say, I'm just going out for an hour. They don't realize if something happens, you have a medical emergency, if you get dislodged, and knowing what kayak to have. If you have a river kayak and you're in Lake Huron, it's a whole different world than a proper kayak for the lake. And that white light could save you as it starts to get dark, because paddling, if you're on a SUP, if you're on a kayak, very hard to see from a vessel sometimes, especially when you're wearing your cool black PFD because it's sleek looking. The brighter, the better. I know there are a number of boaters who it's very difficult when they get close to shore because you're so close to the water line in a kayak. People don't even realize.
I really liked your remark about cottage country when it's more of a relaxed environment, but all those dangers are still there. I know when I got into stand-up paddleboarding, which for me is kneeling paddleboarding, a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, it's a great new activity, which means I get to buy a whole bunch of more gear to help keep me safe. So I've got my little deck bag on my paddleboard with my flashlight and my safety knife and my chemical lights and my whistle and emergency blanket and all this crazy fun stuff. But then when you're going out on the boat, on a lake at a buddy's cottage, you kind of forget all those things where you're like, oh, I don't need it because I don't really have a reason. Like all the same risks are still there. If not, they're greater than if you're paddling, 50 meters off of shore at the beach. But all those same dangers are still there. So it really drives home the importance of being prepared around the clock whenever you're out there, because all those dangers are still there.
So Kathleen, if any of our listeners are interested in learning more about AdventureSmart or wanting to request a presentation from their local SAR team, how do they go about doing that?
The best way is to go to the AdventureSmart website. There are presenters all across Canada. If you go to the website, adventuresmart.ca, it'll tell you about our programs. It'll give you some tips and tricks, but it also gives you a place to request a presentation. Those presentation requests go directly to the provincial coordinator for each province. So anything from Ontario, it does come to myself, or Trisha might jump in and grab it, which is great to have some assistance, because especially this time of the year, the busy time. And then we see where they're located. So if it's a request for Goderich area, I know Spencer's out that way and I can send it out to him. Usually I send it to the team coordinator and they know who is closest to the presentation request, who is maybe stronger in paddle smart or only prefers to only do the children's presentation. So yeah, if you go to adventuresmart.ca, it comes directly to the coordinator, who will assign it to the closest team and get a presenter scheduled for you and get someone out to deliver the presentation.
What if a team wants a specific person? Because Spencer is a local Z-list celebrity in the county. Every time I have to do Winterfest or some sort of public display event where there's children, they all walk by and they all tell their parents, there's Spencer.
There is a note section on the request form. So if there is somebody, and that happens because sometimes, you've heard about the presentation by your colleague at work, by your neighbor, and you would like that person to come out, that's fine too. There's a note section on the request that you can say, I'm Spencer's neighbor and I'd love to have him come out, or I heard about this presentation from whoever, and request that. And if they're available, sure, or we can coordinate a time that they're all available. So that's an option.
Nice. Thanks for the plug, Patrick. Awesome. Now, Kathleen, that leads us to our last question, my favorite question of the episode that we ask all of our guests, and that is, tell us why you are in the search and rescue world and what's been keeping you involved all this years. Why do you do what you do?
And probably the strangest way anyone ever got involved on a SAR team, but I was living in the Northern Ontario and I got a call from my friend one day and he said, come to my office at 6:45 and bring ice cream. Okay. This has happened before. Usually it's a bad day has happened or a favor is to be asked. So I showed up with my ice cream and he proceeded to make the 2 largest ice cream cones you've ever seen in your life. Hands me one. He goes, get upstairs to the office quick. So we run up to the office. Previously, I'd worked on his website and done some other small tech jobs. Something's broken. We sit down at his desk. He sits on his side, puts a pad of paper in front of me, dials on a speakerphone, throws a pen at me and says, write down everything they say. And I've got the largest ice cream cone you've ever seen dripping down my left hand now while I'm scribbling for the next 2 hours. So apparently he was the president of OSARVA, Ontario Search and Rescue Volunteer Association at the time. And he got a call that the recording secretary had just quit and roped me into taking the notes for their quarterly meeting. So when that meeting was done, I was like, what exactly was that? And then I learned we had a search team in our town, our small town, and the more we talked about it, the more interesting it sounded. So I joined Geraldton Search and Rescue back in 2002. And when I moved to Ottawa, I looked up the local team. So that's when I joined, at the time, SAR Global One, before we changed our name to SBO VSAR. And yeah, so I'm coming up 20 years anniversary with SBO and almost 23 with OSARVA. From some weird request for ice cream has turned into this lifelong passion. And why I stay involved is really the people and, being able to help people and the people that we rescue, the people that we deliver the presentations for, and then also the teammates, the people that have all decided to join and give their time to be a search and rescue professional volunteer. And they're just amazing. When you're at work and you talk about your family, sometimes the work family is sometimes more of a toxic environment, but a SAR family is family, and I wouldn't trade them for anything.
That's awesome. I was going to say, I can't imagine you like taking meeting minutes that much, that's the only reason you've stayed involved for 2 decades, but I'm glad that's progressed into opening doors for so many other reasons to keep you involved in SAR. And the way you got involved kind of sounds like the way I got involved. Yours is a little bit more aggressive in your face, but at least there was ice cream. Mine, Patrick just cornered me and said, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And I was young and impressionable and said I should try and do something to get this grizzled old army to like me. So I guess mine was a little bit more psychological detention, but it's worked out well. And we all seem to get involved in different ways, but we're all here for the same reason. So I love that it's opened so many more doors for you to be involved, and that you're still around, because we appreciate you and all the work that you do for us and the good people of Ontario, and dealing with numbskulls like Patrick and I.
And I'm going to use that tactic to get more volunteers out to events.
Well,
hey, everybody, grab some ice cream.
Oh, yeah, that. Yes, absolutely.
Get in. We're going.
Yep.
Let's talk about SARCan. We've been slowly leading up about it. We're excited because somebody had the idea that Spencer and I, should go to SARCan and podcast live, and we're in. We're going to have to be heavily scripted and maybe even a 5-second delay.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us, what is SARCan and the importance of it, please.
So SARCan is a national search and rescue conference for volunteers, professionals, police, and it covers ground search and rescue, air and water. So the Coast Guard and Casera, all our local teams and teams from across Canada. So we all get together. And this year it's going to be in Ottawa and October 1st to 5th. So the first is going to be some pre-conference meetings. SARVAC will have their board meeting, likely an AdventureSmart meeting. And then on the 2nd of October is when things really get interesting with the SAR games. So teams are encouraged to sign up teams of 4 and you go through different stations. A lot of people are asking what the games are going to entail and trying to get the inside scoop, but that wouldn't be fair. So I will tell you SAR skills. SAR games will be consisting of testing your SAR skills. So that's broad enough and narrow enough for everyone to know about. So there'll be a registration form shortly so you can put in your teams. I'd love for the cup to remain in Ontario and have one of our teams highlight their skills. And then following that, we'll have a little meet and greet that night. Friday is when the conference itself really kicks off. So the educational pieces, conference sessions, different activities. Friday night, we'll have a volunteer appreciation night. Saturday, the conference continues. We'll have a banquet Saturday night. And all during that time also allows for a lot of networking, connecting with old friends, meeting new people, some social events. So everyone should come away with some new SAR friends, some new SAR knowledge, and somebody will be leaving with their Slaughter Cup, which is what you win when you win the SAR games.
So if you're having a competition for SAR skills, I make a good SAR watcher and fan. I'm a good SAR fan. Otherwise, unless you want dandelions picked in the field on your soccer field, I'm not taking part in anything except I'll root for everybody.
Well, that sounds good. It's always good to have a cheering section to encourage everyone.
I'm known for cheering.
Theaters.
Unless part of one of the games is sitting in the command post with a coffee and barking orders over the radio, in which case I nominate Patrick to keep the Slaughter Cup in Ontario.
Well, we look forward to going to SARCan, and certainly we have the ability to do live podcast coverage. And so I think we're going to set ourselves up with a little booth that you guys haven't realized yet and just grab people as they go by and throw them on the air.
That sounds great. Oh, especially if you have ice cream, you'll have a lineup around the block. So, yeah, that was a great idea by one of our committee members to reach out and ask, and you jumped right on it. So it's going to be a very exciting side quest.
We're looking forward to it. Thanks for including us this year.
And thank you for coming on and talking about AdventureSmart. I know it's a real passion of Spencer's, and he's taught thousands of children at this point. Like I said, he's a Z-list celebrity locally here. And I think that the education and engagement is key. I think prevention is the biggest part that we can be playing. And I know I'm going to steal Spencer's thunder here, that we can never capture the stats of the searches that we have taught and are avoided because of what kids have learned and the preparation and the prevention. Does that sound about right, Spencer?
That's close enough. And
that is an important fact that we can't track the stats. We can track the stats of who we find, who we've searched for, and who we've taught, our prevention, who we've presented the programs to, but all the incidents that were prevented, we can't really get a feeling on. But I know they're out there, and that's what keeps us doing what we're doing. And when I talk to the kids, I ask them, what is better than being found? And the answer would be not getting lost in the first place. And this is why we talk about these 4 rules to keep ourselves safe and not get lost.
I like that. Awesome. Okay. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us on our 10th episode of SARCan and sharing everything about the AdventureSmart world. We really appreciate you and everything that the AdventureSmart program does for our world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to highlight that these are the people in your neighborhood, but I think this week, Spencer, we're going to combine it with the SAR Spotlight. And I think that we have to give a shout out to all of the volunteers of Colchester Search and Rescue, along with Halifax Search and Rescue and any of the other SAR units out in Nova Scotia that have helped over the last 8 days looking for the 2 missing children. It's heartbreaking that these 2 children are missing, and Colchester has been working daily through quite the terrain And I can only imagine the emotional toll that that search has. So we send our shout out and a recognition to Colchester Search and Rescue, Halifax Search and Rescue, and all of the other ones that are out there trying to bring these two children home.
Yes, thank you to our Nova Scotia partners. Be safe, be well, and make sure you look after yourselves as well. And good luck with your endeavors here. Thank you for listening to SARCan, Canada's Volunteer Search and Rescue podcast, brought to you by Axiom Mutual Insurance, keeping promises close to home. SARCan is pre-recorded and produced by the Huron Area Search and Rescue and edited by Bad Puppy Productions. This episode was made possible by Hay Communications.
SARCan is driven by your suggestions and comments, so please, if you have an idea for a topic, want to highlight your SAR unit, or give a shout out to a member of your team, contact us at sarcan@hazard.ca. SARCan, for Volunteer SAR, about Volunteer SAR, by Volunteer SAR. And that was a great episode, Spencer. You finally got AdventureSmart in, and I don't give you enough credit when it comes to how powerful AdventureSmart is and all of the teachings that it gives.
Well, I thank you for your support. I thank our community members for coming to us and requesting these presentations and spreading the good word. And I thank Kathleen for putting up with me and my terrible reporting practices and everything she has to deal with on the back end that we're not privy to as presenters. So thank you, Kathleen.
Yes, and she is the secretary on the board of OSARVA, so she has to deal with my crappy paperwork on the OSARVA side. So double thank you to Kathleen. And before we go, I've got a new line to end the episode.
I'm going to interject here, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was able to write the questions here, I've also taken the liberty of writing the closing salutation. And that is, go Leafs go.
Is that a sport?
It is a sport, Patrick. The game starts in 30 minutes after we're done here. You and I are going to watch it, all right?
Like a hockey game?
Yes, it's a hockey game, Patrick. We'll work on that. I'll teach you all the rules and everything.
I hope both sides win.